sound of your feet upon the ground and carry on.
Carry on from fun. It's right here on Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Yes, indeedy. So a good one here, The Power of Now. Eckhart Tolle. It's a great quote that sparked this entire show. And I'm going to get into that right off the bat, but it really does have to come into the power of now, and from the standpoint of focusing on where our thoughts are. And this whole quote is around the thinker part of us. And so that's kind of what the show has to do with. That part of us that's thinking, that is sort of, and I kind of dig it from what I was reading from Eckhart Tolle. It's kind of almost a separate aspect of ourselves. You've almost got the observer and the thinker, and the observer is listening to the thinker and going, yeah, totally, yeah, no, I get it. But the observer actually can control the thinker, or, in this particular quote, pay attention to what the thinker is actually talking about. So let's give it a go here. We'll see how this quote comes out. It's pretty good. The mind is a superb instrument if used rightly. Used wrongly, however, it becomes very destructive. It is not so much that you use your mind wrongly, you usually don't use it at all. It uses you. This is the disease. You believe that you are your mind. This is the delusion. The instrument has taken you over. The beginning of freedom is the realization that you are not the possessing entity, the thinker. The moment you start watching the thinker, a higher level of consciousness becomes activated. You then begin to realize that there is a vast realm of intelligence beyond thought. That thought is only a tiny aspect of that intelligence. You also realize that all the things that truly matter, beauty, love, creativity, joy, inner peace, arise from beyond the mind. So the mind's got all these thoughts, the mind does all these things. But it's not where joy and passion and creativity, it's not where those things are experienced, is it? The mind thinking about things of the soul gets you really nowhere. Feeling these experiences, that is what being alive is. Now, the part of this quote that got me, and this is all I saw, it was actually on Twitter. Someone tweeted this, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then I just went into this big, long reading stuff, and I was like, I got to do a show on this somehow. I don't know how I'm going to pull this all together. We'll see. But the moment you start watching the thinker, a higher level consciousness is activated, becomes activated. The moment you start watching the thinker, a higher level of consciousness becomes activated. Now, kind of what that ended up meaning to me, kind of where that sort of jumped into my wheelhouse or my understanding or my creativity or curiosity, all these things, all the above. The thinker is an aspect that is talking in the background. It's almost like I frequently joke that I do talk to myself, and a lot of the times I think it is that thinker aspect, that piece of whatever, that part of ourselves that's doing that thinking. And then there's this other part of us that's kind of experiencing life and paying attention to the thinker, like we're audiences to it. But when we finally start to pay attention to it, so the first thing that came to my mind is when I finally start paying attention to the thinker, I start to see some of these habitual things that many of us talk about holding us back, right? We might have repeating fears. We might have areas where self-love comes into play. Maybe I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not whatever. Like I can fall into any number of those categories, all the same thing. When we start to pay attention to the thinker, to that voice inside of us, we start to see the things that are actually happening. Now, a lot of us, the observer part of us, likes to think that we're doing everything good. We're doing everything right. We're right on the money. I've been doing my self-love. I've been doing this and that. I've been doing my meditations. I've been doing my affirmations. I've been imagining from. I've been living from the end or living in the end or whatever the heck. I've been looking back from the now. I've been doing, I don't know, EFT tapping. I don't know, those things that are popping in my head. There's so stinking many of them. So many of these techniques. And that's great. And I love it. And I love when everyone comes up with a new one and I can look at it. I'm like, all right, it's the same basic principles that are operating in all of them. It's an issue of creating some sort of positive imagination, positive thought process, positive experience that gets us feeling a certain way. And when we do that, we attract more of that. That's it. That's the law of attraction in a nutshell. All of us want to make it far more complex than it is. A lot of us feel like you got to be in this certain state of mind and you got to elevate your being to a certain place. You got to get all your chakras aligned. You got to make sure you're like, throw salt over your shoulder and you've been good to your neighbor and you said hi to Jane and you friggin' smiled to what's his face across the way that you don't like. Like, I've done it all. I've done everything. Why is it not happening? Why am I not getting what I'm imagining or trying to work on? Why is it not happening? What's slowing me down? And that was what hit me like a ton of bricks with this quote. The moment you start watching the thinker, a higher level of consciousness becomes activated. Now, there's two parts to that. The moment you start watching the thinker, the moment we start paying attention to the thinker, not observing, not going along with, not just following the thinker, literally noticing what's coming out of the thinker's proverbial mouth. What's coming out of these thoughts? What thoughts are they? Now, a lot of us may find that we get a negative thought, so we quickly do an affirmation. Good, that's taking control of your thoughts. But it's paying attention to that thinker, to the thoughts that are actually coming out of us. Those are the indications where we are, where we're at. Now, we can work through those things, and I think that's wonderful because the thinker definitely will help point things out. But more importantly, you'll start to realize how the thinker has been running amok. The thinker has been basically leading the observer. The thinker's out here thinking all this stuff, good, bad, ugly, whatever, and we're like, yeah, totally, and going along with it. And it's like the phrase, put the cart before the horse, right? Like don't put the thing that you're supposed to be pulling behind you in front of you. So what this really means to me is when we start to pay attention to the thinker, we start to actually see what it is that's pulling up our handbrake on us. Now, instead of necessarily trying to do the opposite, like, oh no, I've got to resist this, I don't want to do this, that's obviously going to make it happen more. Resisting anything puts more energy towards it, it's going to create more of it. And as I've frequently said, people have said, well, how do you get out of that? And what you do is you notice, oh my gosh, I keep catching the thinker thinking negatively. Let's think of something positive. And I don't just mean it's all about positive thought. What I mean is when we start to put ourselves down the path of what we'd like to experience, we start to put ourselves in line with our soul's desire. Our soul's desire is to be happy. Our soul's desire is to experience love. Our soul's desire is to experience beauty, creativity, joy, inner peace. Our soul wants to experience these things. Source, higher power, God, Allah, Jehovah, Yahweh, Allah, all want us to experience these things. So when we start to think in the direction of what we'd like to experience, our soul purpose, our soul desire, when we start to think about what it is that we truly desire, and we start to consciously say, no, I'm controlling these horses, these thoughts are mine, and I'm choosing to think about them. Here in the United States, every time there's a political season, there'll be some like commercial that'll come on, and it's whatever, it's good, bad, it's ugly, and then at the very end, it's like, I'm Republican so-and-so, or I'm Representative so-and-so from state such and such, and I approve this message. Like, it's always a funny, like, I approve this message. So when we're approving our thoughts, right, when we basically are controlling the reins of our destiny and our thoughts, we will find that we start to experience more of these soul-level things. I believe truly, and this is why I teach any of this law of attraction stuff, because I'm really into all the spiritual stuff a lot, probably a lot more than the law of attraction stuff. The law of attraction stuff, though, is a very cool way to start to realize that our thoughts essentially have power. Now, our thoughts generally tend to lead our feelings. They tend to lead that observer And the observer starts to feel things based off of what thoughts are happening. And as those feelings begin to happen, soul level, mind you, feelings, that energy begins to harmonize in the body, begins to radiate, becomes a frequency that it's almost like a fuzzy energy all the way around us. Now that energy is what we're attracting more of. So it's not so much the thoughts that attract to you. It's not that if I say love, 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 that I'm going to attract love to me necessarily. No, it's saying love and thinking about love and embracing and that feeling and that, God, I'd die for you, that I just adore you. That's like the ground you walk on. It's like you're filthy right now and I want to lick you anyways, right? It's like, right? That crazy love. That feeling that you connect with when you think of love, that is what attracts. That is what law of attraction speaks to. That is why I think it's so powerful that we learn to control our thoughts. There's a huge effort out there, primarily from marketing, but certainly politics. There's a lot of individuals trying to affect your thinking. And they want to affect your thinking in their favor. I'm not saying which side I think you should think. That's completely up to you. It really, really, truly doesn't matter. It's the difference between choosing my thoughts myself versus listening to someone else's thoughts and going, yeah, totally, and letting that lead you. Understand the big picture, and certainly, in my opinion, and this is slightly political, unfortunately, but I would say just because you don't fully agree with one side doesn't mean you're on the other side. You can be on one of the sides and go, I agree with all this except for these couple things. I think you guys probably need to rethink about that. Well, then you're on the other side. No, I'm totally on your side. I don't agree with you there. Like, we should be allowed to have discussions. But that being said, our thoughts are a very important thing. Our thoughts are what lead us down this path. And as we learn from those, as we learn to adjust those in the direction we'd like to go, and we start to feel more and more of those kinds of things, that is when we will start to realize and see more beauty, more love, more creativity, more joy, more inner peace. These things we talk about as coincidences will fall into a lot of these categories. When you finally get that you're heading in the direction that you create, that you see enough things happening around you, that's where the inner peace comes from. Because you no longer worry about, does this work? Does this not work? Am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? It's an issue of, yeah, it totally works. I'm seeing experiences of it all the time. The big question so many of us will then grapple with, for sure, when you're, kind of finalizing your understanding of this law of attraction world is, well, when does it happen? Yeah, that's a tougher one, frankly. And really, the answers I've been able to come up with aren't necessarily ones that a lot of people like to hear, but I've come to find that it happens exactly when it happens. And generally speaking, from what I can best tell, hindsight's 20/20, all that kind of stuff, it happens at the perfect time. That's what I've come to find. I've come to find when looking back on things that I've tried to create and then finally created it, that if it would have happened when I was first trying to create it versus happening when it did finally create, I can usually make a really awesome argument for all of the benefits for why it was good it happened when it did. And I can oftentimes even point out a lot of the negatives for what would have happened if it would have happened when I wanted it to initially. So that's sort of the part of me that realizes I think there's a little more to this life and this manifesting stuff than just I should be able to have whatever I want. Bam, make it so. Well, yes, you should. But there's this process that goes with this. There's this experience that comes with it. There's this challenge of learning to guide our thoughts ourselves rather than let them be guided for us or let them just guide us without any sort of holding the horse. It's like, literally attaching the cart to the horse and then just letting go and just letting the horse take you wherever the hell you want or wherever it wants. I'll tell you what, you're not going to end up where you're planning on going, but you'll end up where the horse wants to go, which probably is going to involve eating and food and not traveling a whole lot further than that. It'll just be probably annoyed that it's having to tow around this cart for no apparent reason. So let's work on trying to guide that horse. Whether we want to debate on whether you can create your thoughts, you don't create your thoughts. Like, I think thoughts happen regardless, but we can guide them consciously for sure. because I can say, for any of you right now, blueberry muffin. All right, now blueberry muffin, neat little muffins wrapped, there's blueberries in it. You're seeing it now. You're seeing it now. I just guided your thoughts. It was that easy. Blueberry muffin. They're delicious too, by the way. Cut it open, a little butter in there. It's warm. Delicious. You can guide your thoughts. Your thoughts start going down crazy politics path. Be like, whoa, I want to be with my SP. Like, not even related. But if we're going to think about something, generally thinking about politics seems to upset everybody. Let's not do that. Let's think about something I'd rather. I'm not changing the world. I'm not voting for any. I mean, other than voting for politicians, I'm not, right? I'm going to worry about, like, my job, and I'm going to worry about, like, creating things, and I'm going to worry about, making more YouTube videos. I'm going to focus on how can I make the world a better place. I'm going to focus on what can I do to improve my life. What would I like to learn more about? What am I curious about? What do I like to do? What's my favorite color? Like, whatever. I control my thoughts. I guide them. Maybe I don't control them, but I certainly guide them. If I allow them to go down a bad path and I keep guiding them that way, I tend to get depressed or angry. Either or, neither are fun. Neither really benefit me. Some people love to be angry. So again, that's where you fall. Cool. Spend more time in that genre, if you will. I don't. I enjoy being happy. I enjoy just getting along with people. It's just easier. It just makes life more interesting. Certainly had more doorways opened up to me because I was nice versus being a jerkhole, right? So a lot of times, it's just a better choice for me. So I guide my thoughts in those directions. And when I do, I have seen some amazing, cool magic open up in my life. Eckhart Tolle is not someone I've read a lot, but this quote was awesome. I mean, it was magic. It was in Twitter. 140 characters or less? Maybe they've recently changed it. I don't know. But again, it was a tiny amount of words sparked an entire me researching, me doing a show on it, the whole 9 yards. And it was a fun, guided thought process to go down. Universe popped it up in Twitter. Magically, I found it. I don't normally spend any time in Twitter. It's very rare, right? So rare already. And here I am, and I find this quote just scrolling down. It wasn't the first thing, and it caught my eye, and I'm like, oh. And literally closed Twitter, bam, started researching, looked it up, found the quote, started reading about it, found this cool thing online, printed out this thing. Like, it became a process. Again, I choose where I'm going to go in my life. And what I've found is when I do that, I create the outcomes I desire because I'm focused on the outcomes that I would like to experience. And by being focused on the outcomes that I'd like to experience, I experience those outcomes. Could be coincidence. I don't know. I met someone while traveling that they're like talking about law of attraction and maybe I didn't think blah, blah, blah. Right. And I don't know. I just kind of was stupid and said, hey, it's funny. I've got a YouTube channel that's about that kind of stuff. And they started asking me some questions and she was trying to ask me some questions. Essentially the one where she thought she was pinning me down so just all I got to do is just think positive thoughts and that'll change everything. I'm like, no, it's not really that simple. And I tried to start she smiled right when I said that, like, haha, I caught you. And I'm like, really thoughts kind of present sort of a momentum in the way they start to present your feelings and things along those lines. I brought up all the successful people that you could imagine. When you look at what they've done, they focus on where they'd like to go, and they don't take no for an answer. They don't let failure set them back. They don't let things stop them. They continue. If there's an obstacle, I know I got to get around it because that's where I'm going, right? If I'm going down that street and I have to go down that street and someone put a barricade up and I've got to park my car and walk the rest of the way, fine, I'm going down that street. That is where I'm going, period. I don't care what happens. I don't care if someone pops out and goes, rah, with a knife. I'd be like, whoa, right? Like, and then run maybe some of that distance to get the heck down the road. So whatever, right? I don't know why that's the analogy I come in with, but someone's seriously trying to stop me from my happiness. Well, that's not going to do. I'll figure out a way. I'll turn on my flash lightning speed thing. I don't know. Hopefully this helps. Hopefully this makes a difference. Going out with a great song. I went kind of classic on this one. It's someone's fault, I blame, because we started playing a little musical game where we had to keep bringing up different song titles during conversations randomly. I think we started with Van Halen, then we went into the Eagles, and it's really what led me down the path of the Steve Miller Band. So we're going out with a great song from them, of course. The song's called The Joker. It's right here on Dan RadioStyle.
'Cause I'm a picker, I'm a grinner, I'm a lover, and I'm a sinner.